Hello, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about pulling multiple RSS feeds into your website. Now, I'm going to show you today with a really simple technology called SimplePie, demoed by Chris from CSS Tricks. Now, there is actually a screencast on the SimplePie website showing you how to do this sort of an aggregation from screencasts around the web, but I thought I'd show it to my audience and kind of get the word out there on YouTube. So there's lots of ways to pull in our RSS feeds, but the way I'm going to show you today lets you have full control over exactly what is displayed, and it's really popular. So that's what we're going to do today. We're just going to pull in feeds from free websites: tom-rogers.com, css-tricks.com, and css-free.info. So all CSS related sites. So let's just get to it. As you can see here, I've got a simple page opened up with just a page wrap and a wrapper div with just a simple H1 in it that says using SimplePie. If we go and look at the development environment here, as you'll notice, it's live on my server in the development directory, and then I created a directory called SimplePie. It's just got a simple index.php file and a style.css file. SimplePie relies on PHP for it to work, so you need to have a .php extension. And then I've just got an includes folder which contains the SimplePie.inc file that you have to include to do all this jazzy stuff. Okay, so let's get started. Assuming that you've downloaded the latest version of SimplePie and uploaded it to your server, what we need to do is begin a PHP statement. Right, even before the doc type, because all this stuff needs to load before the web page loads. Now, this could be a potential problem because if the feed doesn't load properly, then neither of this page, not even the doc type, will continue to load. But there's ways around that, and I'll show you in a minute. What we first need to do is find where SimplePie is, and we do that with the stock PHP function require once. So we're requiring this file, and now we need to specify what it is. In my case, I put it in the includes folder, and then SimplePie.inc. That's the only file that you're going to need to upload to your server. We're going to end that statement. And now we've got access to all the SimplePie functions. So SimplePie works on the basis of these things called SimplePies, which are basically things that suck in feeds. So let's just create a variable to hold a SimplePie, which in PHP we do with the $, and I keep screwing up. And they recommend that you call it the feed variable. I'm going to set that equal to new SimplePie that's a function provided by SimplePie, and SimplePie functions that you use for extracting stuff you can find in the SimplePie documentation over at simplepie.org. So we've got this new thing which is now not a variable, it's now an object because of that new SimplePie function. So we now need to run functions on that object. And the first function we need to run is to give it our feeds. So in this time what we're going to do is that's the notation for an object. I'm going to run a function on that object, and the function is going to be set feed URL which will be an array.
It's 17 hours.
And in here we're gonna put all our feeds that we want to SimplePie to be able to use. So first, let's give it CSS tricks. And then end the statement. All we need to do to add more things to this array is put a comma and then put the next URL in quotes. And I'm just going to keep good indentation going on. So we're creating our second thing that's a part of the array. Let's now create our third and final thing that's going to be part of the array. But note, you could use as many sites or as many feeds as you wanted to. I'm just going to use 3 though. And the final one's going to be my website. So we're going to load the data for that. So what we've done now is loaded these data from these 3 feeds into our array, that's part of our SimplePie function. Now we can actually start changing settings for it. So now, as it stands, we've got the data. Now we just need to actually do things for it. We're not actually gonna show anything yet, so if we save that and upload it to our server, go ahead and refresh the page. Nothing nothing's changed, but nothing's loaded. That's because we've got this massive PHP object that's loaded with all that data, but it's not a part of the thing. So that's a good sign because it didn't throw up any errors. It wouldn't have loaded this page if there'd been an error. So let's do some more stuff. SimplePie has caching built in, so that if every time someone loaded the page and it grabbed the different stuff, imagine how many feeds you had and imagine how many times the page got loaded in a day. This would be really heavyweight for both your server and the feed on the receiving end. So what we need to do is set up caching, and it's just a simple function again that we're extracting out of this feed object. And the first thing we're going to do is say enable cache and we're going to set the value of that to true. But now it's got nowhere to cache, so we need to set up caching using some more functions. So the first function that we're going to use to set up caching is feed set cache location I'm going to set it into a folder in this directory called cache. It's not gonna as you can see it doesn't exist yet, but we're gonna create it. And the final thing we're gonna do that's to do with caching is we're gonna feed set cache duration and we're going to tell it in seconds how long we want it to be before it goes out to the server and sees if it's updated. So these feeds don't get updated very often, so I'm just going to say, just for argument's sake, I'm going to say 1800. This is in seconds, so I think that's like half an hour. Now that caching is set up, let's go. No, actually, let's refresh the page and kind of simulate an error and show you what it'd be like if it loaded and there was an error. It doesn't look like there was a problem, but basically what we need to do now is set up somewhere for it to dump that cached data. So as we specified there, we're going to create a new folder in our directory called cache. Now obviously the server needs to be able to put content in this, and it's a little weird, but we need to give it an octal full permissions of 777, otherwise it'll throw a wobbly. So now we have caching set up correctly. Now one of the reasons why we didn't get an error is because this object's being loaded, but we're not actually doing anything with it. So let's get started doing some stuff. The next thing we're going to do is use a PHP function that's not provided by SimplePie, but we're going to execute it on the feed object in the context of SimplePie. Feed init, and as you know, just a different type of syntax color means that it's a PHP function. That basically means fire off. If you don't put that in, it won't work. Now that we've initted it, I'll just try and simulate that array again by changing the path name to a folder that doesn't exist, and see if it throws an error. Now that we've actually told it to fire off, it should. Yeah, it showed us an error, and it gives us this weird file path that's actually referenced in the SimplePie variable. And if you get this, it means your cache folder's not set correctly. But if we set it to the correct location again, we'll find that there's still a problem. Ouch. I may have just okay, so now because there's no errors, that tells us that we've got caching and the process working. So now we've got all the necessary stuff we need in the feed object. You don't even need this whole caching bit. We could just get rid of that. All you actually need is the set feed URL and the init. That's literally all you need. But we're gonna do some other stuff which is just for goodness. We're gonna do feed handle content type and that's all I'm going to do. Now, it's important to note that the ending PHP is on the last line, so that we don't get anything. Now let's save that up and refresh, and we should get nothing. We should get no errors, but we should just not get anything. But that's good because that means everything's successfully loaded in this feed object. Now, a great thing about this is you can use your own markup. So we have complete control over this HTML and what we want to do with it. So now let's decide on what markup we want to give it. And there's several things you can use that are several functions you can use that to actually spit your stuff out there are actually documented on the SimplePie documentation. And if we look at the API reference, you can look at the different versions and the things they used. So we used set cache location, set cache duration, enable cache, and set feed URL. But there's all this stuff you can use: set file, set timeout. We might actually do that so it doesn't keep trying forever if it fails. So we're just gonna go feed set timeout. And I never actually knew this existed, but it shows you how much you can learn by following the documentation. So you can give it a parameter, but after the time it will give up if it hasn't got the information from the feeds. I'm just gonna give it 10,000 just to be safe, but that's probably not very realistic. So we've done everything we want to do before our HTML content. Now we actually want to add some stuff. And as I was about to show you before I got sidetracked by all these functions, there are some functions you can use to spit stuff out, like if in our feed there was an error, which we'll use now. So we're just going to go into our content div, open a PHP statement, let's say if in our feed object there was an error, and then we want to do something, so we're just going to echo feed error. So that first little snippet is saying if there was an error in our feed, show it in our content div. Echo feed error. Let's hope I've written that PHP right and it doesn't throw wobbly. And it did. I forgot my end statement. So we're going to say if in our feed there was an error, then echo out the error, and then end our if statement. That should do it. Just a little PHP syntax error. So we've got there, but there's no errors displayed, so we know there's no errors. So we can safely go ahead, rest assured that it's all going to work, writing our code. Now is where we actually get to write some markup. So after that little snippet, we can get going. So first, and there's many things you can do, I'm just gonna make h3 elements. Oh no, I need to. What we need to do now is something called a for each loop in PHP, because we've currently got this feed object, but that's the feed on a global scale. And if you just wanted to get data on the feed itself, you wouldn't have to do this. But if you want to get the items, you have to say for each item, show it as differently. So we're just gonna convert the feed get items function into an object of its own, so we don't have to do feed get items and then echo the functions on that. We can just do item and then get the things of that. So the way we're going to do that is like this. For each, and then we're going to do our thing. So we're going to say for each thing in the feed object, we're going to use SimplePie function get items, and then we're literally just going to say the results of that function as item. So that reads pretty well. PHP for each, meaning for each thing pulled out by this function, convert the results of that function and just give it to us as the item variable. So now we're just going to put a colon and end our loop, or end our PHP statement, sorry. And we're just going to come here and do end for each and end our statement. Inside this for each loop, as they call it, is what we want to put out. So what we're going to do is decide on the markup we want to give it. So let's say for each item we want to get the entire content. So we just want to make paragraph text and say PHP echo and now we're using the item object because that's what we gave ourselves when we said as item, but we're still going to use it to extract functions in the same way. And we're just going to extract from an object our get content function. And now we're going to end our PHP statement. So now it should get the entire thing of all our items in all our feeds. So if we refresh, now we really should see something. And it's getting the entire content from every feed. So it's got from CSS tricks. There's been the most posts on CSS tricks most recently, but it's got from the other feeds as well. So we've achieved our goal. Now let's use some more functions to get more pizzazz. So before our for each loop, we're just gonna use our feed object because this doesn't concern individual items. So we're gonna say get description. Let's decide what markup we want that to go in. Let's have it go in strong tags. So before it gets all the items, that should echo out the description of each feed in bold. If we go back and look at that thing. Before our for each loop, and we reload, still seems to have loaded the same content, but you notice how it was caching, so that might be why. Let's do a little thing just for a minute and set enable cache to be false instead of true, and that way it should grab new content every time. So it's grabbing stuff, and yeah, it's working. So and that's just how to pull in information from an RSS feed you maybe do something a little more practical, but you can see how well that works. If you want to look at this example, you can look at it at dev.tom-rogers.com/SimplePie. Thank you for watching this video and subscribe if you've liked it.